Today, it is 1 o'clock on Sunday. Just so you know, it is not 2 o'clock on Friday. This is ChillPoint.
So who else is going to get screwed up this week by us doing ChillPoint on this day?
God, yeah, right?
I mean, the last week doing... we recorded Checkpoint early last week because of the PPR. And then because of the PPR, we also recorded... we also didn't do ChillPoint on Friday.
Yeah.
So my
Your week's already been kind of...
when you do... I mean, I'm sure other people, you know, this is not a thing particular to streamers. But because my day tends to be, you know, fairly flexible in terms of what I do each day, the streams are sort of anchor points.
Right. So what's your next anchor point then?
And so I think Wednesday is the next.
Okay, so you've got a few days of disorientation ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm hoping Rhythm Cafe today will reset me.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, because that'll be
sense.
normal time.
Yeah.
And Rhythm Cafe, you know, it's just a totally normal show.
Absolutely normal.
That is filled with people telling the truth all the time.
A type of truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's built on a house of lies, in my respect, but also it's full of an old man yelling at clouds.
Yes.
Come on, you're not that old.
I will stop calling Ian an old man when he stops saying things like the youths.
I won't call you an old man if you don't yell at clouds.
By virtue of getting older, more and more people are going to become the youths to him.
I know.
And it'll make it harder for him to stop.
And look, I love Ian's rants as much as other people who might like Ian's rants, but it doesn't change what is happening.
Hey everybody, welcome to ChillPoint, the show where we talk about the week's video game news as well as the episode of Checkpoint, which did in fact go up on Thursday, despite being recorded earlier. So I was actually checking sort of this morning and talking to Heather and Beej about, like, was there any extra, you know, we recorded Checkpoint on Tuesday this week. We're normally record on Thursday. Record on Tuesday, and then so this is 2 days later, 2 days earlier on the Checkpoint, 2 days later on the ChillPoint. Did we miss anything important in terms of news? And to be honest, big ups to the video game industry for not doing anything interesting.
Did you just pull breaking out news out of your pocket, Beach?
Yes.
Breaking news.
So after Heather told her story last week about being able to contact Nintendo and get all of her stuff fixed, I got on the phone once ChillPoint was over and sorted it out, and it took them 10 seconds to fix my account.
Oh, it's nice of them to send you a receipt.
Yeah.
That's right. The breaking ChillPoint for the video game news you won't find anywhere else. Have any other outlets done news about Beej's Nintendo buying things problem? No.
I mean, given
why
that...
mainstream media? Why are you ignoring this important story?
Given that, on a serious note, that this is a problem that several people have been having.
Yeah.
Why haven't you been recovering this, outlets?
I mean, if we base this like on the way that, like, if you think about it in the way that like polling data works, is that if you poll 1,000 people and you get a sense of how 10,000 people feel, right? That kind of idea. So based on the fact that Heather found a Reddit thread where they were talking about this, and there were multiple people in there who were saying, I'm having that problem. Yeah, I'm having that problem. Hey, I'm having that problem too. We all think it's because of X. You know, we all think it's because of a shadow thing that got caught in our cart, and then they must have done an upgrade or some sort of refresh on the store, and that cleared the carts but didn't, like that kind of idea. Anyway, Haley was very nice to fix my account. So what happened was that they had given Heather a thing that had said, hey, if we fixed your account successfully, please contact us to let us know that everything worked properly. Because it was one of those things of, please go away for 24 hours. And then
Yeah.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, and if you don't contact us by like a week,
week
later,
later.
we're going to close the ticket. It's just a person really wanting to be able to close their tickets.
But that means that now I have a phone number that goes straight to tier 3. For one thing. Also, there's the reference
Such
number.
power.
There's the reference number included as well. So I called in and said, I'm calling for 2 reasons. Hello, Haley. I'm calling for 2 reasons. And she's like,
One, how are you?
Yeah.
You know?
nobody ever asks, how is Nintendo? They all ask, why is Nintendo? And she said, I had said my wife's, I'm calling on behalf of my wife because she's busy doing something. I want to let you know that the fix that she got last week for her shopping cart issue is fixed. She's able to buy stuff. She definitely did. Holy shit. And
Hey.
Wow.
it was a big box.
Yeah, and it didn't need to be that big.
I mean, my box was about as big, actually. So
Every item I bought was very flat. The box was this big.
This
All the
is-
items could have fit in a box this big.
they could have.
Somehow this has turned into like a, 60,
Women be shopping?
Yeah, 60s like stand-up routine.
Can I do that? If I buy things, can I expense them to Lure to bring them onto ChillPoint to talk about the packaging?
The only reason why I'm doing all of this is to make Lure pay for all of them. So anyway, so I said that is working. She's like, that's great. I said the second reason I'm calling is because I have been having the same problem since November of last year, and I don't know what's happened. And I called a guy, and I spent a couple hours on the phone with him. He was supposed to give me a reference number, email one to me. He actually never did. We got cut off in the middle of our call, too, and now I have the same problem my wife does. Can you look at it and fix it for me? And she says, yeah, let's bring this all up. So we did. And she's like, okay, so one of two things. You might have the basic fix, or you might have the more complicated fix. Your wife's was the more complicated fix. Let's see what we can do for you. Log out of your My Nintendo
We've got the basic
account.
plan. That's $10 a month.
Yeah.
We have the more expensive plan.
Where we actually
that's an extra
fix
$15.
the problem,
yeah.
you know? So she said, log out of your My Nintendo account. Great. I'm going to do your fix now. And she went ahead and she did the fix. She's like, log back in. And so I'm doing this all on my phone. And then when I'm done, it's like, okay, now try to add something to your cart. And I did, and it worked. It added to the cart, popped a little thing up like it's supposed to. I'm like, hey, it worked. She's like, great. That was and she, like, it's 10 seconds for her to fix it. I could have, while Heather was telling the story on ChillPoint, I could have just left, got on the phone. Sorry?
Last week.
I could have just left, got on the phone, probably called them and had everything done in about like 10 minutes because of getting
There we
through
go.
the waiting for whatever. So after that, I said, now, this has been great, Haley. Thank you so much. There is a Reddit thread that is talking about this. I don't know if you guys are aware of it or not, or if knowing more about more people who are having this issue would help or not, but I'd be more than happy to send it to you. And she said, if you want to do that, I'll send you an email after we're done, and then you can just forward that on to me, and then we can take a look at that. I'm like, great. And I've completely forgotten to do that, so I have to either do that and I don't know. I have to go check my email and see if
She's
that
now
actually
been
showed up.
fired for reading Reddit at work.
Yeah, exactly. She did say, she's like, that could help, but also we have a pretty good handle on what's going on with people having these problems. So I said, and then now we have people that we know who have had this problem as well. I'm a YouTuber, and I cover video game news, and I've been talking to our audience about the problems I've been having. And
Yeah.
she's like, okay. And I said,
I'm like, yeah, I'm sure her heart didn't like leap
Yeah.
through her throat.
and so I want to be able to tell them, because some of them having the same problem, what they should say when they call in to actually let people know what's been going on. If there's a way that they can actually get to the problem fix faster. And she said, there's no real code word. Like there's no really kind of the best way to describe it is say that when you go to your shopping cart, it's empty. And there's a blue box there that says that we've moved something into your cart, like one item into your cart, but your cart is still empty. Mm-hmm. And she says, if our people are hearing that, then they should know that that is the way to move things forward to get the fix made.
Say, I want the beige fix.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you say that.
I would love that, actually.
And I hope that is information that they've started throwing out at their tier ones, because
That's the
I feel like from your conversation,
Yes.
tier 3 knows this is an issue.
Yes.
But from my conversations with tier 1, like having someone try to be like, oh, well, I've never heard of this.
Yep.
I need to figure what and maybe he's just new and he hasn't
That's right.
gotten whatever. But his first initial response was, I'll just take your order for you. And I'm like, that doesn't solve my problem.
Yeah, that's
So
helpful.
I'm going to
and
make you
thank
solve my problem.
There's an old. Did you ever have a WRT 54G? One of those like really like the routers you could install like custom firmware on. That
No.
okay. Who made them? Anyway, so they had on the forums where they talked about the custom firmware, they had a thread that they called the Peacock thread, and the reason they called it that is because they needed to use a word that would not have anything to do with routers or anything altogether, and they would just tell people, it's like, have you been through the Peacock thread yet? That's the first place you need to go to try to fix a problem that you're having. First, go to the Peacock thread. The Peacock thread will tell you how to do all the things to actually get your router working properly. And then if you still have problems, you can post a thing about it and do whatever. Like, not like read the FAQ, because there's like all sorts of different facts for all sorts of different reasons. Like, no, read the Peacock thread. The Peacock thread will help you, and then you can move on. And that's the thing, is I'm like, is there a code word associated with this problem? Because it'd be like, I'm having the Wario issue, or something like some stupid goddamn thing you have to say, and they'd be like, oh, we know what that's about. Yeah, here, we'll fix you.
I have a question before we tell people what our show is about and actually talk about our show properly. If that's exclusive news,
Yeah.
am I a leaker for telling everybody in the Nintendo thread of our Discord, discord.gg/loading ready run, or is it LRR? It's LRR.
Yep.
If you want to join, what happened?
No, because there's a lot of times that news kind of gets spread around to other areas, but this is like,
Okay.
so. And I bought all my stuff before Christmas, actually. I made a brand new account and bought a ton of stuff then. I didn't want to lose out on the ornaments.
Yeah,
I
I
bought a
told
lot
them
of
that too.
things.
I told on you a lot.
Thanks.
You were curious.
that's
I hang
fine.
out in the Nintendo thread. I don't post in there
They
a lot.
deserve to know.
I know you're all like just talking about Fire Emblem now, to the point where Mods actually resurrected the Fire Emblem channel. Good job.
Alrighty. Well, let's talk about the episode of ChillPoint that went up on Thursday,
Yeah.
which was Kathleen and Beige talking about first Halo.
Oh, yeah.
Or the the layoffs that Microsoft.
layoffs.
Yeah, Microsoft has gone through a whole chunk of layoffs, which obviously sucks.
Yep.
And it's weird the way this was reported on in a lot of places, because a lot of it was reported on as sort of like, because there's been a rash of layoffs in video games, but also just in high tech
Yes.
in general. Facebook has gone through
Almost every
and-
giant tech company has laid off like 5,000 or 10,000
It's
people.
almost like their end of term years
Yeah.
coming up.
Yeah. Almost every one of them.
And so a lot of the reporting on this was like 30,000 layoffs across the thing, like rather
Yeah.
than they kind of aggregated it all together.
Absolutely.
But anyway, now a lot of this is basically all of these companies sort of that kind of staffed up for over the pandemic because of all the remote stuff. Microsoft had a bunch more things. Also, Microsoft closed down or severely. I don't know if it's actually completely canceled, but severely closed.
HoloLens.
Yeah, their HoloLens and VR stuff.
Yep.
So that was a big chunk of that as well. But another big chunk of it was a bunch of people from 343 Industries,
Yes.
who are the people who make Halo, at
Yes.
least at the moment. used to be a Bungie thing, but then Bungie is no longer with Microsoft.
Can Halo really be on a Nintendo console for 10 years if they just don't have anyone to make it?
Oh, it's Call of Duty.
Oh, is
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Why, they're just fucking all the same.
Yeah. But still,
All your shooters are the same.
if I don't know, if what's his name, Phil Spector? Yes.
Spencer?
I don't know.
Phil Spencer.
Warren Spector is who I was thinking of. So if Phil Spector
Two
was-
different guys.
I don't. Yeah.
Wow, you did an Ian.
If Phil Spector came out and he, oh wait, no, Phil Spector's a real dude. He was the Beatles manager or some shit,
Yeah.
wasn't he?
Phil Spencer
Yeah.
is who we're talking
Right.
about. Yeah.
Phil Spector was the guy who did all the mixing for the Beatles. Warren Spector's the guy who made the Epic Mickey. Is the only game he ever made in his entire lifetime is Epic Mickey. I know
Okay.
it doesn't sound right when I say it, but for some reason it feels right. And yeah, Wall of Sound, that's who the guy, thank you. It's like he's a record producer. Anyway, Phil Spencer, if he came forward, and then Phil Schiller works for Apple, except he doesn't anymore. I think he actually moved on, or he's retired. Anyway,
If you want to fact check any of this, especially in the
And-
YouTube comments, go for it.
yeah, this is good. He could also come out and say that we're going to put Halo on a Nintendo console and just not make Halo for 10 years. Yeah, I agree. This is the thing that you had said. I have found a way to make it make sense.
I
hope everyone followed.
Agree because I lost the thread.
It's like one of those Japanese carnival games where you pull on the thread and you see what lifts up, except that in my case, the thread lifts a whole bunch of shit at the same time.
Anyway.
The thread lifts up.
Yeah, have you not seen? It's a precursor to crane games. You have a
Nope.
whole bunch of threads, and one of them's tied to a PS5, and then there's a bunch of threads that come out of pipe, and you pull on one of the threads, and then the thing lifts up.
Yeah,
and
no,
does-
I've seen that game. I've
Yeah.
never seen it in anime or in a Japanese context.
It's literally a traditional game at
Okay.
carnivals. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, where was I?
Paul,
I was
please
off
help.
in fucking left
we're
field.
here. I don't know where you are.
Paul, help.
So, 343 Industries has had a bad time of it. Apparently, Halo Infinite hasn't performed the way that people were. Well, one, it hasn't performed the way Microsoft was hoping in terms of sales. Also, it hasn't performed as well as people were hoping in terms of actually being a good game.
So like attach rate's way too low.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it hasn't been as successful as both the people making it and the people playing it were hoping.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's the fault of 343 Industries or what, who knows? But anyway, so the fact that there have been a bunch of layoffs there sparked the idea that the Halo franchise is going to be taken away from 343.
Ah, yes. Given to the Surface team.
And they say, nope, that's not the case. 343 Industries will continue to develop Halo and in the future, including epic stories, multiplayer, and more of what makes Halo great.
Yeah.
Which
yes.
is the thing where that's the entirety of the statement. And for the episode of Checkpoint, actually, we cut to the full screen graphic of that statement. And I love that. I guess they've got like a template for like Twitter statements.
Yeah.
That is quite large. It's as if they have like space to write a lot, and they didn't like change the font size or the size of the thing or anything.
No.
So it's just like that's just a lot of space around this very small sentence.
And I will give them points for the fact that really
I mean, it's a very definitive statement.
That's the thing. Really
They aren't
verbose
dithering about it,
apologies
yeah.
are really tough because they're also a good way for you. They give you just multiple opportunities to shoot yourself in the foot. The more words you say, the more opportunities you have to fuck it up. As you've watching today, you've noticed. So the fact that they didn't just, Cyberpunk 2077 this with black text on the yellow background and go on for paragraphs and paragraphs, that they're just like, this is the thing. We're sorry about this. Don't worry, though. We're going to keep making things. It's like, okay, that's good. That's fantastic. But also seems like it in its brevity, it still doesn't deliver. And that's the hard thing is it's like, wow, when you make a really half-assed statement and it's only 2 sentences, that really doesn't feel reassuring.
I mean, we had some fun at their expense in terms of, even within that very small statement, some stuff that maybe could have been phrased better.
I mean, you can always phrase something differently.
Yep.
And it's hard. I think especially when it's a shorter sentence, it actually becomes harder to come up with how you have to phrase things. Because I imagine that has to go through a couple of people too.
Yeah,
and
PR's
there's
got to have a
arguments,
hold of it.
and there's like, oh, don't make sure you don't say certain things or like whatever.
But you just want to be like, is 343 Industries still making Halo?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
But on the same size.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Thing, it just, yes.
Is free
period.
still making things? Yes. Signed so and so. Heights. Knights?
Does 343
Fights.
Industries still make Halo.com?
This is Kathleen. Graham had written the story. Kathleen had read the story. There are points by which the thing got brought up about, epic stories and multiplayer. Like the the idea of like if you're making a chain of words, sometimes having more words helps. Taking the word epic out and just being like, including stories, multiplayer, like it's kind of like, then it feels like a weird kind of laundry list that doesn't make any sense.
It does feel weird to not have a descriptor before stories.
Exactly. You'd have to have something. But epic is kind of a weird thing because I know that sense of saying, on the one hand, epic is a word that gets thrown around all the time. The point the story is making is like, epic is a word that gets thrown around a lot by like all sorts of man children who talk about how something's so rad and epic, dude. But also the idea of an epic being a story that spans multiple volumes and spawns multiple generations.
Do you call, when you're talking about an epic,
yes,
as in the story of an epic,
mm-hmm.
do you because I've never really had to think about this much, do you place the word epic next to stories? Is that like saying your SIN number?
It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of a story is sort of
like,
called an epic.
I honestly am very curious. I don't.
Is it
it's
an
never
epic
a thing I've really
epic?
had to think about because, again, most of the time when I hear people use the word epic, if it's not the company name, which is actually the reason I think you might want to stop using the word epic if you're not with that company.
Yes.
That's true.
It gets overused especially in video game parlance.
Yep.
To mean a completely different thing, and I don't know how it works in a literary sense.
Because I've heard sprawling epic is always the word I hear associated with epic as a noun, as they talk about how the epic is sprawling,
And which is interesting because sprawling is not generally like a positive descriptor.
No.
Like sprawling epic is usually like okay.
Yeah, but nobody ever writes a tight epic.
But like a sprawling story, just sprawling story, like that would not be a good. That would not be a positive thing to say.
People in chat are saying at that point you're using epic as a noun, whereas in this case they're using epic as an adjective.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I think that's true.
Then saying it's an epic story, you're not calling the stories epics. Then you're saying, oh, it's large and big and interesting and amazing.
Yeah.
You're using a different word.
Exactly.
And therefore, I think Kathleen/Graham's point stands.
I think so
Checkpoint
too.
comments.
I think that also.
I saw a lot of Checkpoint comments that kept explaining how epics are used in a literary sense, and I was like, okay, that's true. I do know that. I know that is a true thing, but is it actually being used that way here?
Yeah, and it's kind of less common to refer to that. To say epic story as unless you really want to get the point across. But the other thing too, sprawling epic is how you describe the movie Ben-Hur. Yeah. So the other point though is it goes from epic stories, multiplayer. And I'm like, boy, that's a bit of a letdown in that sentence. And I'm like, but I'm curious about this. What would you put in there that doesn't sound like you're completely out of your mind?
I think like epic stories, exciting multiplayer.
That's the first thing I thought too. It's exciting,
dynamic multiplayer.
Yeah, exactly. Do you say like how far can you go? Can you say world class, genre defining? Like
genre defining would be really good if you could pull that off.
Because Halo was one of those things that for people was like, this is console multiplayer in a way that we haven't seen before. Thrilling's a good one, like that. Engaging in a statement like this definitely sounds like PR wrote it. That's the thing.
Fine multiplayer.
Yeah, like it's how do you fine-grained multiplayer? Like, is that even a way to refer to it? Like how does a guy like this write a sentence that doesn't sound like PR wrote it, even though PR will have gone over it and picked it apart. How do you write a thing so that it sounds honest?
World premiere.
And I'm like, yeah, it's like, it's depending on how you want to reflect the things that you want to say. Salt encrusted multiplayer, that's good. Between myself, I'm just like, what is the word that you put before that other than maybe exciting or thrilling? Not gripping. Gripping is maybe more for the story, right? But it's I feel like there should be a word that you can put there that's like, it's a thing somebody would say when they have like a pretty good vocabulary but not a great one.
Yeah. So the thing I think when I look at this literally is I would avoid using the word epic because in video game space, Epic is the name of another company.
Yes.
And that's basically it.
Especially if they're a competitor.
That too, right? And but the terror part of like I'm gonna tear this thing apart because it's fun to do, but at the same time I do think I'm like, what would I have done a better job in this position? I'm like, no, of course not. I'm a tired PR person who has to put out a press release very quickly because we've put a bunch of layoffs have happened that I probably have nothing to do with, and I need to answer the question: do we still make Halo?
Maybe the person's job who to write the statement just got laid off.
That's true too. That's also a possibility.
Yeah. So it just is a thing where I was like looking at it, I'm like, I think it deserves more. I think it deserved a little more thought as well, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
there's only so much you can pick apart.
I say that about a lot of things, but at the same time, I'm also like, I know what my work week's like, and sometimes I have to post a thing, and I'm just like, it's just copy paste. Oh shoot, I forgot to change the month's name.
Rich Corinthian multiplayer. I like that.
A pantheon of stories.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking,
that's right, isn't it? Pantheon is basically a story thing.
That means like a whole bunch of like a pantheon would be like
how gods, right?
It's like a whole bunch of different pieces that are all together.
Yeah. Okay, maybe don't make me do your PR.
Yep.
I'll get too fancy.
Well, speaking of video games with epic stories, Donkey Kong, turns out was actually originally going to be a Popeye game.
And boy, did that bring people out of the woodwork to say, hey, this isn't news. And I'm like, oh man, if you think that wasn't news, wait until next week. I got some stuff that really isn't news for you.
Now, I believe my impression was that the design document was the new piece.
Yes, it is.
That the fact that Donkey Kong was originally going to be a Popeye thing was a known thing, but this design document, signed by Miyamoto,
is the fresh
is a new piece.
Well,
from 2021.
Fresh, if you're not Japanese.
Yes, the Forest of Illusion on Twitter found this and put it out in 2021 on Twitter, and then this other person just recently found this thing, I guess, and like was sharing it, and that's kind of how it kind of re-entered the narrative. And then, of course,
look,
Nintendo Live did a story on it, and that's how we find out about stuff, is when the actual High Surge.
It was new. It was new to us. So
exactly.
Maybe it was new to some of the other people out there.
But I will say that Iwata Asks had revealed this back in 2014, back in 2009.
I thought it was 2009.
Maybe it was 2009. But Iwata Asks already revealed this in the new Super Mario Brothers story, because Iwata was having a conversation with Miyamoto, and they're like, let's talk about Mario, but let's go way back to Mario's roots. He was supposed to be Popeye. Like, that's kind of where this kind of started, and it's
how
like, it's
things
all right
could have
there.
been different.
Yeah, how things could have been different.
Now, I find it funny that Beach is like, oh, all these people keep telling me this isn't news, because I've literally watched videos in front of him and watched him be like, I know all these things already. Yeah. And I'm just like, okay, yes. And if you don't want to watch a 30-minute video about all the secrets of Breath of the Wild that everybody already knows, but somebody else made a video about,
called
granted,
10 Things You've Never Heard of in Breath of the Wild.
In Checkpoint, that story was 2 minutes long.
Yeah.
You can also fast forward.
So here's the other thing, though. I had some, not in the story I didn't have my facts screwed up, but in my brain I had facts screwed up. Because the idea that Donkey Kong was supposed to be a Popeye game, and I'm like, Nintendo made a Popeye game. we showed it. And it was made in 1982. And for whatever reason, I had this mixed up with the idea that, Nintendo made a Popeye game. They definitely did. They actually ran into some trouble trying to make the thing in the first place.
You thought they made the Popeye game and then rebranded it as Mario rather than the other way around.
That I thought they made the Popeye game, and then it was like, oh, that was originally going to, like, Donkey Kong was originally going to be Popeye, and then instead they're like, oh, well, let's go ahead and make Donkey Kong in a different form. Like, Donkey Kong was originally supposed to be Popeye, the way that we had Popeye, and that Donkey Kong was like, well, we were going to make that out of Donkey Kong and whatever, but then we got the license to use Popeye, so we just redrew everything and made it Popeye, and then Donkey Kong came along later as a completely different style of game.
The Iwata Asks said that they had made Popeye as a Game & Watch, and I think there was like another thing.
And playing cards.
Playing cards.
Yeah.
And so the idea that they were like, oh, we'll make a Popeye game kind of makes sense.
Yeah, because they made a Game & Watch game of that. And so it's like, I had that kind of flopped in my brain. So when I read the things like Donkey Kong was supposed to be Popeye, I was like, oh, wait, my timeline is screwed up. And I went and I had to look everything up and realized it's from seeing the design document. You're like, oh, okay, they made this. And then surely King Features was like, I hear Donkey Kong is making a shit ton of money, and these people already own our Popeye thing. Maybe we should give them permission this time.
Now, if you want a current Popeye game, we showed a clip of it. Donkey Kong. I feel like the Donkey Kong's star has risen maybe a little bit more than Popeye's has in recent times. Yep. Not just in the video game space, but just in the cultural context. He's being played by Jack Black in the new movie.
Yeah. Who's the last person who played Popeye?
Robin Williams did it. Yeah. There's been stuff since then, I think. But here's some screen. This is the game that is currently available on Switch. This is the screenshot. It's so empty.
Yeah. It's kind of barren.
Well, maybe.
Look at him.
I'm not really sure what they're trying to go for with any of this.
The fact that these are the screenshots they're using to like advertise the game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know what this is like. Some sort of.
It's a Skyrim-alike, I'm sure. No.
This is like some sort of puzzle thing.
Donkey Kong has that thing where you like pick up like
collect letters.
Is it letters or like?
Yeah, Kong. Yeah, you get Kong.
So
in the newer games, right?
So what would be better than having to collect an entire sentence?
Oh, right. It's Jack Black is doing Bowser.
Yes, it's Chris Pratt who's playing Donkey Kong.
No, it's.
I largely don't care about what's going on with the Mario movie. Seth Rogen.
Yeah.
Sorry, my brain actually flipped to who was playing Luigi, but I couldn't remember his name, and I was just like,
Charlie Day.
That's not what he looks like.
Ben Schwartz.
Anyway, this game. So the Popeye game, maybe doesn't look so good.
Yeah, we're looking at kind of not. I mean, it would be interesting if Nintendo all of a sudden got this thing in their idea where they're like, we used to make Popeye games.
Let's like make like a really awesome Popeye game.
Let's make an amazing Popeye game.
Nintendo has enough first party things that they haven't brought back out in several years that I think people would rather see them do than another Popeye game.
There was the original Popeye game where he's like gathering hearts and stuff from olive oil.
Well, like
there was a sequel.
But like the Popeye eating spinach.
Yes.
And getting the like superstar in Mario is very equivalent, right?
It sure is.
It's becoming invincible and destroying everything in your path.
So what if
is basically what happens to Popeye when he eats spinach?
Has anyone done a Super Mario Brothers reskin where it's Popeye?
I mean, maybe.
And it's like Brutus spitting fire.
Probably not. I feel like the Popeye fandom hasn't been that intense.
Oh well,
to enable that.
It's too bad.
Wordle.
Yeah.
Got sold a few years ago now. I guess, a couple years ago now to
Times.
New York Times for minifigures of money. 7, I think, or 8.
It was a lot of money at the time. We were definitely like, I can't believe that they want to pay that much money.
$1 million.
But
good on them.
Yeah, and so now Merriam-Webster, the dictionary company, has bought Quirtle, which is a Wordle that's like 4. And I was excited that in the comments, there's a few people who are like, hey, I love that game.
Yeah, okay.
Like people who have sort of like migrated over to the 4-up Quirtle.
And surprised to find out that Merriam-Webster now owns it.
Or people doing the sort of people doing the like humble brag of like, well, Wordle got too easy for me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
No
I had to
kidding.
switch over to
Yeah,
Quirtle.
I remember trying out Quirtle briefly. I think that's the one where you're essentially doing all 4 of them at the same time.
Yeah.
So one guess gives you letters for everything.
Which is kind of a clever idea. Like I could almost see that as like a puzzle in a video game or something unto itself.
I mean, in some sense, I had hoped it would make Wordle actually easier because then
you're seeing other letters show up in other things.
I'm seeing letters show up for other things, and maybe I have a better guess over a different quadrant that would help me in the quadrant I'm actually struggling on.
I was saying when we were recording this, just as like a side note, that I, as somebody who is, who does web development and, I have some experience with programming and stuff. Haven't made any video games or anything. I loved how successful Wordle was. Mm-hmm. Just because, and totally no shade on the guy who made Wordle. It's not that hard to make a game. Like, it's not that fancy a game.
Right.
And it was programmed in a relatively simplistic way because it was programmed for something it was something that he made for his wife to have fun with.
A very internal project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It, all the word database is just stored in the HTML as like a big list of words. Yep. It was really easy for people to pull out and all this stuff. That's great. Like, it wasn't supposed to be a huge, fancy, complicated thing. It was just a nice little game, really, simply done with just a nice, really simple, well-made interface. Mm-hmm. And it really caught people's attention. And the idea that something like that, even in this, day and age of AAA titles and stuff, can capture people's minds and sort of get people excited about stuff and get successful, is kind of it's fun to see.
Well, in the day of everyone, I shouldn't say everyone, many people on the internet arguing about how 4K should be the standard and 60 frames per second and everything. A game like Wordle that definitely doesn't need any of it.
There is I think that also makes an argument too about how UX, like the whole UI of a game, not just a video game, but of a game period, goes a long way into helping to popularize and spread a game. And also, for the ease of onboarding for someone playing a game.
And it's, obviously, as many people said at the time, the concept behind Wordle is not a new idea.
No.
It's been done many times before. Mm-hmm. But, hitting it right, obviously, it's a time and a place, but also building, making it look really nice and clean and a simple interface and everything that is just kind of makes the difference. Yeah.
And it kind of actually also taps into one of gaming's earliest things, which is score sharing. Right? Like, did you get the Wordle today?
Yes.
Which, that was...
Did you break your streak?
To
that
me,
kind of thing.
Like, in some ways, like, that aspect was like... That was sort of in a game that wasn't that... people have made before. That was sort of a really interesting, innovative part of it, was coming up with this idea of how you can share your score without actually spoiling it for people.
Yeah,
now,
was pretty neat.
was that integrated into the site to begin with, or did people on Twitter start figuring out a way to do it.
No, you could do a
Yeah, it was
copy
built
or
into
something.
the
It was
site,
built
yeah.
into
Built in from the
thing.
beginning. Okay.
Yeah, it was the thing people complained about on Twitter, because if you do screen reading, then your screen reader yells at you a bunch of colored blocks.
Absolutely right, and that's terrible. But yeah, as a means of how do I represent my score and how I did, and because people who post like it's like, oh yeah, really got it today, and they just have 5 green blocks, and it's like, right, your first guess you nailed it, right, good for you, or your second guess you nailed it, so really intuitive, like that kind of idea. And I'm sure there were all sorts of things being like, oh well, if you got it in your first guess because you guessed it, that's just being lucky. But if you got it on your second guess, it means you could see the future, like that kind of thing, where it's like you could really read into this. I'm sure there's different like breakdowns of how anybody did based on how many guesses they had. But yeah, that idea of the folk nature almost of, I need to be able to tell people about this thing that I did, this in a simple way, and representing that stuff in a way that's interesting and fun and is a bit of a shibboleth for people who know what you're talking about and aren't. Because like, I watch Seth Meyers all the fucking time, and while Wordle is going on, he's talking about how he's like, oh, I got this in the bee today or whatever, like during like a closer look or during whatever the thing is. Like, he's talking about the spelling bee game that's in the New York Times. And apparently everybody in his office was playing that. Nobody was playing Wordle. But nobody else in the fucking world, it seems, was playing spelling bee. It's just him in his office. And to him, it felt like everybody in the world was playing this to the point where I'm going to talk about it incessantly during my closer looks and during my monologues or whatever, and everybody will know what I'm talking about. And I don't think anybody had a fucking clue what he was talking about, but his office was convinced that this was the game everyone was playing, this game, apparently.
We do a similar thing.
Yeah, right? Like, we all play a thing, and you start to think that everybody's playing Bloodborne. And it's like... because later on, like weeks later, he was like, what is this Wordle thing that everyone's talking? Like, he was completely blown away by this idea of like, I thought we were all playing this, but we've been playing this other game. And it's like, that's also a thing of, it's communities of people who are involved in a thing, and you tend to think that what you're doing is way more it's everyone's focus, and it really isn't.
Yeah, this is why you get statements like, oh, people are still playing blah.
Yeah,
because there are still like news stories coming out about a thing, and people act like, oh, why is anyone talking about that? No one's playing that anymore. And it's like, actually, a lot of people are still playing.
Yeah.
That. In fact, Wordle, because I know a lot of people just stopped playing Wordle, and I haven't played in a while, is one of the most popular things in my own Discord.
Yeah,
it's the thing that gets posted about daily.
I mean, it's that it's
great.
The internet is great for fostering these kind of. Communities, and sometimes they can be kind of insular, right? So you'd be, you hear somebody being like, oh man, the internet went crazy about this thing, or like everybody on the internet hates this, and people be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Also, Discord is a much better place to discuss Wordle. Not only because you can share your thing, and then like you have your own, you're like thread space for it where you're not going to have like a screen reader problem, but also they have spoiler tags in Discord, so people can have actual discussions about how they thought the word was and how hard it was without having
that's good. And you can have like the Wordle specific thing without annoying everybody too, if you want to have that. Yeah, I
really like the fact that I do think it's weird that, as we've said in the story, someone cloned a game that already existed and put that up for free, because there's lots of Wordle clones online. And then another company was like, sufficiently different, we could buy this and make this into our own thing. Yeah, let's do that. And it was just shocking to me to be like, surely the New York Times is going to be like, hey, hang on a second, this is literally just a 4-way clone of a thing that we already own. Except maybe that's not the case. Maybe when you make I was going to say Sugoroku, which doesn't make any fucking sense. It's like Monopoly, right? It's like a Monopoly or the Game of Life or whatever, where it's like, I have a game that involves a piece that moves around a board, and maybe this game goes around the board and comes back to the beginning and kind of keeps going until everybody runs out of money, or I have one that goes from start to finish.
Can't copyright game mechanics.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like all those things exist. And you can just keep remixing that stuff over and over and over and coming up with new ways to make it interesting. And that's what's happened here. Somebody said, what if I took this, but 4 of them? That's funny. Actually, it's actually really good.
I mean, like I said, one of the neat things, because Wordle was such a simple game,
yeah,
programmers and lots of people immediately came up with all sorts of different variations of different ones. We talked about it a little bit on other episodes of ChillPoint. But
yeah.
In terms of puzzle games, I just have to say that, like, when everyone was super into Sudoku for that period of time, I was starting to get into Picross. And I was just like, and I'm still into Picross. And I'm just like, oh, nobody likes Picross. Just me, because no one ever talks about it. But then you mention it once, and everyone jumps out and is like, I also play the Picross games by Jupiter. Because Jupiter makes the best ones.
Oh, they really do.
They do.
Yeah.
We're not wrong.
I got Nonogram's Katana because Paul said you should try this on your phone because it's really good. And that's not made by Jupiter. But it is a really good Picross engine.
Yeah.
But
Sudoku was good on Brain Age.
Oh, was it?
Yes.
Okay.
Because they had the Sudoku extra area in Brain Age. And it had a lot of really easy ways to, like, put in notes and stuff. And you had the stylus so you could write.
Right. Yeah,
so it was like the digital version of Sudoku that I really liked, because paper was messy.
But I just the Jupiter Picross ones are really tight somehow. It's if you have access to the NSO, to Nintendo Switch Online, Mario Super Picross on the Super Nintendo emulator is really good for its age. It is a little different, but it is really yeah.
If you are new to Picross and you haven't played it before, do not start with that one because it's in Japanese, and a tutorial would be very useful.
Yeah, there are
start with like the Picross S series. They have some they've got some demos for those.
Yeah.
You gotta start there, otherwise you won't understand the plot.
Exactly. Yeah.
The characters sort of evolve over the course of the thing.
And Mario Super Picross has hidden puzzles, which I loved. I thought was so great.
Yeah, I'm still working on some of those.
Yeah.
Speaking of little green squares, I guess, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Hey, there we go. That makes sense.
Somebody beat it 50 times in 24 hours.
Good
as kind of a salute to Breath of the Wild, in anticipation of the upcoming new game. And apparently, Beej also beat a game 50 times
in a day. Yep.
In a day. And everyone, people in the chat were very sad that you didn't have your certificate anymore.
I don't know where it is. It's probably in my envelope of all my certificates. I used to have all the certificates that I got in like elementary school and all that. My mother saved all of them, but she framed all of them because it was like, well, you got one of these, I'm going to frame it for you. And then as I got more and more of them, they kept getting framed, and then they kept getting like I'd have them up in my room or whatever, and so I ended up with a lot, and all in like wooden frames with glass, like whatever, the ones you buy at the store, but that's because that's what you would get back in the 80s, right? They didn't have really, plastic frames were not like that cheap, so. I had just had a shit ton of these things, and she all put them in a box, and I realized later, I'm like, she should have just taken them all out and just put them in like an envelope or whatever. So then I got them all, scanned them all into a PDF, and it's somewhere safe. And then I have all the certificates in an envelope sitting in a box somewhere, and maybe that one's in it. I don't know. Maybe I threw it out because maybe I looked at it when I got like a few years older and was like, hey, they haven't invented the word cringe yet, but that's how I feel.
Ooh, sort of related, but kind of back to Picross. The 3DS store is going to stop having codes and stuff by like the end of March.
Yes.
But if you have, I think it's like 1,000 platinum points, if you haven't gotten it yet, the Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess Picross game is a thing you can get through your Nintendo rewards, and you could download that, and that was an excellent Picross game.
Because it was made by Jupiter as well.
Yes.
And it's just, but you have to go do that soon, or else all your points will expire, and you won't.
You won't be able to download anything.
Right,
you won't be able to get the download
they're closing down
code
the 3DS code.
Yeah,
that's a good way to start. If you get 1,000 platinum points, you're looking to spend on something.
That's a game I'm constantly like, if they really actually bring out Twilight Princess for the Switch, I want them to also include a bundle of Link's crossbow training and the Picross game.
Yep.
I do like your little humble brag of don't you hate it when you have so many certificates that are framed on the wall that there's just too many and you don't have room for them anymore? It always happens.
You know what? I didn't realize that wasn't a problem other people had.
I mean, okay, I stopped getting
What? You don't have that? Oh,
I
interesting.
stopped getting those certificates around grade. When did I give up on school? Grade 7. I used to get them all the time up till about grade 7, and we didn't frame them. We put them on the fridge.
Yeah.
And then you, as you get like new ones, you take them off the fridge and you put them in like a folder.
I stopped getting certificates pretty early on, but that's just because it started being, trophies.
Yeah.
And medals and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. This stuff
And they just didn't fit on the wall very well.
Yeah, you need a case
happens.
for those.
Yeah.
I've kept a trophy from when I was young because I generally didn't get trophies for any reason, or all the really shitty trophies you get for participating in like soccer and whatever end up getting like thrown away or restricted or whatever. But I still have my writer's award from like grade 5 or grade 6 that I'm like, I don't know what to do with this, but I kind of don't want to throw it away. But at the same time, it's real dumb that I have an award from like grade 5. It's like, but it's actually kind of looks nice. I'm like, this is not bad. So
it's like it turns out to be actually relevant to what you're doing,
right?
as a career and as an adult,
I should have brought it in and held it up.
Award-winning writer.
Yep.
Benjamin Deary. Benjamin Deary.
So when I was
we need more Benjamins.
Here's yet another tangent. When I was in school, they had two things to like in elementary school. They had two things they did to like reward students for doing stuff, and one was Praise Day, is what they called it.
Oh no!
And that on every Tuesday they did Praise Day, which was if you had done something in the previous week that would be worthy of praise in some way, like you did really well on a test or you did some other things like that. All that stuff got submitted to wherever, and then Mr. York, our vice principal, who was very good at calligraphy, he would basically calligrapher all of these like nice certificates with your names and whatever on them, and then you get called out on Tuesday, and you're supposed to come down to the office and pick up your certificate, so you can go back to classroom and be like, hey, I got this cool thing, right?
Did they give you like something every week?
No, I didn't have that, but I had like a few every year kind of idea. I think the idea was to kind of always keep rotating it so they're
trying to hit every student every so often.
Not really, but they try to at least call out multiple students and not be like, well, we have to give you something every single week kind of idea. Like if you got 100% on a test, you might get a praise day, but if you got 100% next week on a test or whatever, you might not get it again. I came to realize that it's like you might do so well, but we can't just keep showering you with praise because it seems kind of weird.
I
think I had this at home where we had one of those fridge lists where it's like if you did your chores, you got like a star, and if you got enough stars, we get you a gift, and that didn't stick.
That's fair. Because you could just decide I don't need a gift that bad.
I just thought the stickers were cool in other places, for one thing.
I feel like that's like something that that maybe is like a learning experience for a young kid, being all excited about getting a praise day, yay!
Yeah.
And then like a couple of years in, coming to the realization that it's like, wait a minute,
the game is rigged.
Everybody's getting these.
What's the other one?
But here, the thing is that we also had Student of the Week. And
what's this terrible school you went to?
I love my school. It was great. Student of the Week was way harder to get because it was literally a school of 400 kids. I think they had they'd pick one for the early primaries and the late primaries. I'm not really sure how they came up with it, but it was like if you and that was every Friday. It's like if you got Student of the Week, it means you did something so exceptional in the school that they were like, we need to call out this thing. We need to make this clear. And for 6 years, I was like, I want to get this. I want to get this so bad. No. And I have no idea what you have to do it. And I'd get a praise day every month or so, every couple months or so, I'd get one of these things and be like, yeah, that's good. That's awesome. But everybody gets these. It feels like, but I want Student of the Week, and how the hell am I going to get it? And at some point in grade 6, I finally got it. I don't even remember why. I'm sure it's written on the certificate, but I was like, I did it. I got the thing. I got the thing. Then you go to junior high and realize nobody gives a shit about anything anymore.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about what you did for the first 6 years of your life. Like in school, It's just like you get to junior high and it's like a brand new school, and there's kids who are older than you again, and nobody gives a shit about anything that you did.
Yeah,
and that's when it really starts to fall apart.
Like I understand why they develop these programs, and I'm not saying that the intent is bad, but given the kind of student you were, I feel like that was never good for your mental health.
Yeah.
And given the kind of student I was, which by the way, I loved school until grade 7, I realized very early that all these systems were rigged and then stopped caring.
See, and also, praise day is why I find the word like
I hate that term.
it is so bad, right? Like it's kind of like I don't like it. Like praise day is just kind of like it's hard to, it's weird to say, but it occupies a nice little nugget in the back of my brain where I'm like, oh, that still tickles like the part that I really enjoyed, and it's like, boy, it sure brings it into weird relief when people start talking about their praise kink, and I'm like, boy, that just brings that thing back up in my brain, and all of a sudden a bunch of weird shit's happening, and I'm like, boy, I just yeah. So anyway,
So let's go on to the next story.
Yes, please.
And talk about Neopets.
yeah.
Oh, I miss Neopets. My account
Well,
doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I was gonna say you can go back and play them. It still exists.
I just want to play Merca Chase.
It's been like gone through like 3 or 4
That's all
different
I did.
owners.
I didn't really actually give my pets attention. I just played Merca Chase.
So this is sort of a follow up to a story we did a while ago.
Mika? I don't
There
remember.
was a data breach, and they the problem is that of course they were like, hey, change your password, but everybody, Neopets has been around for so very long that a lot of the email addresses that they sent out to change the password stuff to, or that you had to go change your account, no longer existed or were defunct accounts or accounts that people didn't have access to
that was
anymore.
part of my problem.
Yeah.
And so that was an issue. Also, the fact that there were 69 million accounts on Neopets, which it's one of those things where I feel like that's like Neopets has changed hands a couple times, including it was owned by like Hasbro for a while.
Oh, really?
And then other people bought it.
Seems like a
And then anyway,
They had merch.
yeah.
They made like plushies and
a
couple of other things.
And the reason why we talked about them recently is because they were also like trying to do NFT things.
Yeah,
But
that
I feel
was
like
really disappointing.
people saw the like 69 million users thing and kind of were like, wow, and not really understanding what that means in the context of Neopets.
I mean, I think about a quarter of those accounts are kids forgetting their original account and just making a new one.
But anyway, there's somebody's trying to. So Jumpstart, the company that currently owns Neopets, is getting sued, and they're trying to make it a class action lawsuit because of all the security issues. Who knows whether that will actually succeed? But considering, I guess, the number of people, the problem is they have to, if they want to contact other people to be part of the class, it's still going to go to the bad email addresses that nobody can access. So,
it's like, your class, nobody seems to be around to do whatever because, oh well. I mean, how many defunct Rocket Mail still exists as a place you can send mail to, even though I think they got acquired by Hotmail. So if you had a Rocket Mail account, I think it still works.
But there's a lot of I know, I had a Yahoo account.
Yeah.
And probably a Hotmail account. But it's, if you don't log in for 5 years, they usually ditch your account.
I keep getting email from Yahoo being like, okay, we're going to discontinue your account. We really mean it this time. We really mean it. You should log in and get all your stuff. We really mean it. I'm like, I'm glad you're doing that, dude.
You sure that's not a phishing scam?
No, I'm pretty sure it's them. It's like, we really want you to come in and get all your stuff back. And it's like, what you want is you want me to log in to be a monthly active user.
I think I had 3 Yahoo accounts and 1 Hotmail for a while. I think I used the Hotmail account on Neopets. It doesn't exist anymore.
And then we talked about this Elden Ring GeoGuessr, which is super neat. I was like, oh, I'll bring that up and we can have fun and try it a little bit.
Yep.
Here live.
With the 3 people who've never played Elden Ring?
Yeah. But I have to say, I mean, it looks like it's super well done. The amount of advertising on it is really obnoxious. There's 2 giant banner ads down both sides.
Right.
And one down along the bottom and one along the top, to the extent that they're covering important parts of the like interface.
Are all the ads for Elden Ring?
No, they're just like generic Google ads.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the point, right?
I could tell from the because the screens you were showing for the coming up, I was like, oh, it's weird that he didn't crop out that ad, but I can kind of understand now.
Yeah, it's like
you can't really get by it. I'm surprised actually, because when you said there were banner ads around all four sides, I'm like, oh, so it's like that site takeover advertising you can do.
No, it's just like overlay banner ads.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like on the Pirate Bay or other pornography sites.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Except they're like Google ads, not
Oh, so they're just mostly text stuff, or they?
No, they're like, but they're mostly like images, or they're not like.
Oh, it's like the whole like shopping thing where it's like you bought a vacuum cleaner. Here's 5 vacuum cleaners.
Yeah, so it's not like as ads go, they aren't that obnoxious, but
good.
they are also covering a large portion of the site, which is very annoying. Anyway, well, let's talk about what a couple stories that we didn't talk about last week, or didn't talk about in the episode Checkpoint. Although because it was an early episode, there are less other stories this week because the problem is. Part of the reason why we record on Saturday, or record on Thursday, I should say.
Yeah, okay.
Is that, that obviously you got your Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, morning of Thursday for news to come out, right?
Start of the week.
When you record on Tuesday, it's like, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then, so... And a lot of websites don't really report that much.
There's not usually a lot
Saturday,
of
Sunday.
news over the weekend. Yeah.
Even if there is news that happens, a lot of websites they're not home.
Yeah, because you can't,
they don't update.
It's hard for like if you're finding anything that's like breaking news that comes out on a Friday, right? It's like anybody who sends an email out on a Saturday to get that to be like, hey, I need to talk to so and so at 343, and it's like you can't. They are home.
Shout out to Nintendo Life because they do update. They're one of the websites that updates fairly continuously over the weekend.
I have to assume that's because that they're working day jobs through the rest of the week.
Well, they're also like in the UK, so their week, their time,
weekend is shifted.
Their time is offset
exactly
from ours. But so yeah, my feeds turn into like just Nintendo Life over the weekend. Anyway, there's interesting. So I think we mentioned briefly about Last of Us TV show, sort of peripherally video game related because it's based on video game. That's been getting quite good reviews. People seem to be enjoying it, although it does seem to be sort of quite different from the video game.
It's because of the kind of media it is. Versus like a video game. A video game has to focus on like one character, whereas a TV show can swap between some different character viewpoints a little bit more often. They can completely control pacing.
Yeah.
Which you can't do in a video game because otherwise you'd have to take complete agency away.
Yeah. They also don't have to animate ropes.
They don't have to spend as much time animating ropes.
Mm-hmm. So different deal, but it's been doing quite well. I believe there's actually just a thing that it's been renewed for a second season already. But there's a story that was interesting about talking about Bruce Stradley, who's the co-director and co-creator of the original Last of Us 2013 game.
On the original PlayStation.
For PlayStation 3.
Yeah.
The original.
Who is not mentioned in the credits.
Weird.
So Neil Druckmann, who is the executive producer of the TV show,
who also worked on the original game,
who was the co-creator of the video game, is talked about, but it says in the show based on the PlayStation Studios video game created by Naughty Dog and written by Neil Druckmann. If
that's one long credit, that is some real clever finagling.
So Stradley is kind of annoyed at this. He was apparently originally it was him. He was working on gameplay stuff, and Druckmann was doing the script for the original game, but. the pair have repeatedly said before now that they co-created the world and the storyline
when there wasn't other money involved.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah, it's one of those things where the story tends to change slightly.
So, so Bruce is upset about this.
Yeah,
because he feels like he's not getting his due because he was involved in the creation of this thing.
And one of the interesting take on this is rather than be like, "Hey, it sucks that I wasn't part of this. I'm going to sue the company or whatever." He said in a story to the Los Angeles Times, he said it's an argument for unionization. That somebody who is part of the co-creation of that world and those characters isn't getting credit or a nickel for the work that they put into it. Maybe we need unions in the video game industry to protect creators, because of course, in movies and especially in TV shows, there's very precise rules about how things are credited, and how the money is divvied up, stuff. There are various arguments for whether that's fair or not.
Yes.
That certain people should be added into as getting a cut of that and streaming revenue and all sorts of stuff like that. But there is that framework in place in the television world that is not at all in place in the video game world. In the video game world, it's basically the company did it, and it's up to them whether they want to give money to anybody else.
Yeah.
I have multiple thoughts, and I'm going to wait.
People don't usually get like residuals because they worked on a video game.
For
example.
So anyway, and of course the other aspect of this is he left Naughty Dog in 2017. So because apparently they had a bad experience making Uncharted 4. He didn't like the experience making Uncharted 4 because they were brought in after it was already done and it got crunched and a bunch of stuff. So again, this idea that it's like, even though your work was instrumental in making the original thing that is now being adapted into the other thing, you left the company, so now you're totally like, this has happened a couple times too with like when they bring out remakes of video games. The people who are no longer at the company get short shafted on the credits for them when they do, whereas the people who are still at the company, even if they weren't any more connected to the game, get more stuff in the
there's
credits.
a lot of like weird stuff that goes on that isn't necessarily right, but it is how things work. And it's neat that he's bringing up unions. Still think that's a good thing to bring up. A union may not have actually helped him in any of these regards.
Yeah, but in this this article it is talking about, it's like it highlights how little the ownership of anybody working in the video game industry truly has over their work. In the widely unionized TV and film industry, credit is jealously guarded and strictly regulated.
And I'm sure that if you are like, I'm not in the Screen Actors Guild anymore, right? Like, I'm not saying I am. I'm just saying, if I was not in the Screen Actors Guild anymore, and then they published a movie and they just left me out of the credits, I could still have a grievance.
Right.
Because it's like, I was in SAG when I was in that movie, so therefore I remain as a part of that movie, and I'm sure the SAG would be like, yeah, technically that person is still part of whatever, and they're not part of SAG anymore, but they, I'm not really sure how that works, but it's like, I'm sure there are rules within it to be like, credit is due in perpetuity as long as the guilds have power. Right.
But like a TV show, and a TV show will have particular, the credits matter for it. It isn't just like, this show is made by NBC.
Yeah.
Period.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, no. Because it used to be kind of the way back in the day where it was like, oh, here's a film and here's the 3 or 4 actors that are in it. And then it was maybe like produced by this person or directed by this person or produced by this company. And then at the end, it's just like the end, copyright whomever. And then that was kind of it. Like, it's like, well, what about everybody who worked in the movie? It's like they work for the studio and we just said the studio made the movie. So that's how it got
And let's
made.
not forget, video games started in an era of this company made this thing, nobody else, to the point where some people hid their names in secret areas, and then people got very mad when they found out about
Right.
that.
I mean, that's the original Easter eggs. Like that was the whole idea behind Easter eggs, was that they weren't allowed to put their credits in it.
Dave made this, and it's the so two things about this, which I think is interesting, is that depending on how a union gets made for the video game industry will depend upon who's protected and in what way. Because in the labor unions I've been a part of, management is always excluded.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's to allow you for collective bargaining and be able to, negotiate in that way. Now, that means that somebody who would be my manager in my department, somebody who's kind of steering the ship, as to say they're not part of my union. They're excluded. They get usually paid like differently or more or whatever as a result of that kind of thing. But what that also means is, like, in the media industries, people who are steering the ship, like producers and directors, like that kind of thing,
They generally have their own unions.
they have their own unions.
Yeah.
And that's what I always thought was very interesting, is it's like, in a management sense, managers can't be in like a corporate structure. It's like managers are excluded, and it's like managers never said we're going to form our own like collective bargaining association to bargain with the president or something, right? That doesn't seem to happen.
From what I understand, I'm not totally like there's differences between like unions of unions of employees or of workers, and there's like trade unions and like guilds, and like there's certain associations of people that are sometimes that operate under different rules than a traditional union. Like you say, they are used for different purposes.
And then you can have people who belong to multiple unions within media industries as well, to be like, I'm in SAG, but I'm also part of the producers guild, right? Or I'm part of the directors guild because I'm also doing those things, and I want to be involved in that way. Or I'm in the writers guild because I'm doing a lot of writing now too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like guilds, like the writers guild isn't a union in the same sense, but it is a collective bargaining unit.
Yeah.
But anyway.
The other thing that I think is interesting about this whole Last of Us thing is my assumption, my speculation, because I always want to say, is that Bruce got left off the thing, A, because he's no longer at Naughty Dog, right?
That's probably pretty likely.
Yeah. And B, because he's not doing anything in association with the show. Whereas Neil Druckmann sounds like he is, as an executive producer, because he's involved with the show, he gets to assert more of what he wants to happen. And Neil might even be like, hey, I want to credit Bruce for this because he and I worked on it. Let's just pretend. Let's pretend Neil said, I want to credit Bruce as well. And somebody might have said to him, if you give him credit for this in the way that you're talking about, that you want to credit him for this as well, he will then have a credit as part of the show, and that might lead to complicated legal problems. So please don't credit anyone who's not involved with the working on this show. We can credit you by name because you're already an executive producer, but we have to credit PlayStation Studios and Naughty Dog because they own the IP, and that's fine because we're licensing that IP. But if you credit Bruce as part of created by Bruce and Neil, then you have that problem of, what if Bruce says that he has a stake in this and now he's owed something from this as a thing? We don't want to do that. There's a possibility there that somebody's like getting very legally head up and is like I can't.
I wonder if you would actually like have to be part of the Writers Guild in order to allow that.
Yeah, if in this speculation instance of yours, chances are good you wouldn't have somebody say, "Oh, that might be a legal problem." They would say, "We have to throw that by legal."
Yeah.
They would know whether or not that's a legal problem.
Exactly.
Within their own.
Because these things might happen often where somebody's like, I want to also give credit to this person who helped me create this thing. And it's like,
because
we'll take that to legal.
They could have, I'm sure you can put people under like a thank you or a thing.
You can say special thanks, yeah.
Yeah, special thanks kind of thing. And that's not clearly what he would want. He'd want to be in the role that he is for co-creating or whatever, clearly.
I would want it to.
You know, it's not like you put somebody in a special thanks section of credits and suddenly we have to pay them, or everybody who's a Pixar baby is getting. I mean, they're indirectly getting a paycheck because their parents work there, but they're not themselves being paid.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome if you got like
residuals.
It's like, oh yeah, it turns out I was born while they were working on Wall-E.
Yeah.
And so now I get like $5 in the mail every couple of years.
Exactly. For every time somebody watches this, and
yeah. Anyway, any discussion, especially when we go down deep into the legal aspect of union. Obviously this is an international.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
audience.
there was that too.
The rule, not only are the rules in Canada and the United States different, but the rules, not only are like the rules for unions and guilds and everything are different, but even the words mean different things. In different places. So,
and none of us are legal experts or union experts or any kind of expert in these fields.
The idea of some sort of collective bargaining body seems to be a positive aspect. But anyway, another group, hey, that actually probably could use more collective bargaining. WWE wrestlers.
Oh yeah.
But this is in talking about video games. Talking about the new WWE game, WWE 2K23, which for the first time in a WWE game will be adding war games.
That is a
does that mean
WCW event, isn't it?
Does that mean tanks dress up as wrestlers and get in the ring?
No, but that would be amazing.
Dang it. Why are my ideas never real?
And then people will be posting to the forums being like, that's not what the John Cena tank is like. Look, I have these secret military documents. Mm-hmm. You can't see them, but they're there. Yeah.
It's just his dossier from when he was a Marine. Yeah.
Yeah. There's probably a manga out there already.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, war games sounds like kind of a bonkers match. It is where you have. Let me make sure I get this right. A war games match is you have two complete two complete
squared circles.
Yeah. Areas.
Yep.
Each of them in a steel cage, and then there's like a tunnel between the two that people can go back and forth. So this is a real thing that they've done in WWE wrestling at
So apparently this came to NXT. I'm pretty sure War Games was originally something they did in WCW, but there was that merger, right? I think at one point where WWE bought WCW. I'm pretty sure. I'd have to ask the guys on Sidewalk Slam about this, and according to what people are saying, Triple H brought it into NXT, so NXT had this thing going on where they've been doing this great.
So then they have in the 2 years ago, I think, or last year, they did a whole revamp of the WWE franchise engine,
right?
Thank Christ. For the video game. Which apparently, was not doing very well.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, while this game mode was not in it, they basically made the engine. This was the end goal,
right?
They were like, we need to make an engine that will be able to do this,
right?
Because the amount, having two different rings, having the ability, what they call traversal. The ability to, because the ability to actually, in the WWE video games, you can't just like walk around wherever you want.
Yes. Well,
you're not supposed.
You're not
to
supposed to walk around wherever you want, but sometimes you end up in the crowd and you don't know how you got there.
Right. But it's not supposed to be part of the thing.
The crowd is the sub-ocean in that case.
It sure is.
In some cases, yeah, like underneath. Anyway, so they wanted to make the engine robust enough to be able to, and they were like, we want to be able to do this. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, to be honest, sounds pretty cool. They're saying it was impossible to do in their previous engine. And then the first day back, I saw a build and I was like, oh my God, you guys, we're really doing it.
Glad they're excited.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
It's great. I love that a lot. And this is the case with a lot of the like sports video games.
Yep.
That the people who make the sports video games are like super big sports nerds for that game.
You almost have to be, really.
Yeah. Say this isn't to suggest this is the only change in 2K23. Core gameplay, the wrestlers' stamina and pin mini games will be changing. They're responsive to the community's feedback on the systems in last year's games, which I believe is marketing speak for everybody really didn't like what they did before, so they're changing it.
Yep. Whew. It's I think it's cool because it basically means if they're designing an engine where they're like, well, we can have two rings operating simultaneously, it means that in some ways they had to define the ring as an object, and then they had to say, well, we have to allow for traversal, and they're like, well, if we design the ring as an object, as instead of just a play field, right? It's like you can have multiple rings in your play field. We said we can make 2, but really we could make 128. Then it gets complicated.
I don't know enough about wrestling to care about the story. But all I keep thinking about is, what if tactics game, but with wrestlers? How do I make Wargroove with wrestlers? I think that's plausible.
Yeah, you could definitely do that, actually, yeah.
I think there's definitely a room for like wrestling as a game, as a video game, has always been kind of a similar, it feels like it's always been kind of a similar thing with, sort of the guys going around and then you have to sort of pin them a certain number of times, or there's little things to run and stuff. But like other game types within the wrestling rhythm game, maybe.
Oh, yeah, I think that would be a heck of a lot of fun.
That could be good.
I just want to say, every time we do a story where I'm like, I don't know what's going on, my brain's just like, okay, I heard the word wrestling. How do I make it into a game I care about?
Can I make it a rhythm game?
What if wrestling, but a game I want to play?
Yeah, what a game I want. Yeah.
So desu ne.
I don't remember the words. I just remember the tempo.
That's got wrestling in it.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good mini game for Rhythm Heaven.
What's the name of those games? The games where there's like the big like armies.
Muso. Yeah.
So.
Or Warriors, if you're thinking of the English name.
Yeah. So there's the video game, the World War Z, or World War Z, depending on how you want to do it.
Let's go with Z.
Now that's one of these zombie fighting things. Which there was like a movie a while ago with Brad Pitt, I think. And there's a book and various other things. So it has a horde mode, which is the thing where you like defending a thing and lots of enemies come.
Wait, are you saying there's a zombie game with a horde mode?
I know, right?
Oh my goodness! Breaking news.
That's not that interesting.
Okay, good.
Yeah, because most horde modes, like in a lot of zombie games, are like, it's like almost like tower defense.
Yeah, you're setting up stuff. A bunch of zombies come at you.
Yeah.
Now they're making making a new
warrior game.
So this game has already existed for a long time.
Oh, okay.
World War Z. But they're adding a new Horde Mode XL, which kind of looks like they're making it a Muso game. Which,
okay.
So
and if you see the movie of World War Z, there's the thing with that's one where there's just like crowds of undead like crawling up each other and stuff.
Okay.
So it seems like that's kind of what they're going for here.
Is they want them to be very like this ravenous kind of like XL wave in progress. Okay.
So it's like, okay, we're gonna like defend the base here.
Mm-hmm.
Seems fine.
But it's all done third person. Okay.
Yeah. Oh look, there's some zombies coming.
Oh, there's
look,
a lot of them.
There's many zombies coming.
Jesus. This beautiful Japanese environment with all these old temples. And...
Yeah, this is not what I want to be doing in.
Wow. Holy shit.
They're really fast.
What's kind of fun about one of the things that you find out about games like this, and like which was sort of, I think, first innovated on in those kind of Muso games, is it turns out that what is actually difficult about animating huge crowds in video games is the AI. It's not the like physical models.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can simplify the AI down, you can have these, huge crowd things without that much trouble.
Right.
Whereas if you have really complex AIs, then that's when things will like slow way down when anybody's on screen and stuff.
Right.
But like even like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, there was like a Hitman game where you're in a big crowd and you have to like find people and stuff. But the crowd, every single person in the crowd doesn't have a full set of, simulated simulated senses as they're like looking for, whether they can hear you or see you or whether they're scared or, how they're moving and stuff. It's more kind of, the crowd kind of almost moves as like a liquid.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting when they can pull that kind of stuff off in these games. So it's probably not a kind of game I'm probably not a game I want to play, but it looks super neat.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of zombies, but I'm definitely not a fan of fast zombies.
Yeah, it's true.
I prefer them to be slow.
I mean,
because I physically am not super fast, and I don't. Those were like inhuman. I can move faster than the speed of light, running things going on, and I'm like, no.
That's true.
Just dead.
There's like slow zombies who are just like shambling along. There's fast zombies that are like running. Then there's fast zombies that are like faster than a person running, and it's like, hey, that's not fair.
No, exactly.
Yeah, I want a slow zombie to be kind of like basically a lazy cat.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna try to open the doorknob, but it's not really going to be able to open the doorknob unless it's like one of those doorknobs.
I know the justification.
How did that just suddenly zombies became kind of cute and adorable?
This is where my brain goes when we do these stories, Paul. It runs away to somewhere else.
Zombies as lazy cat.
It's the one thing that kind of bugs me a little bit is because, as you're saying, it's like, oh, they're climbing over each other, they're moving so fast, they're trying to do whatever, right? And I'm like, yeah, like the hallmark of a Muso game is that you kill hundreds of enemies in one strike, kind of idea, right? It's like the idea is you get so powerful where you can just start wiping them out. And then, of course, the engine is like, cool, you killed that guy. Time to make them disappear as fast as possible and replace them with something else for you to fight. That's You can't have all the corpses littering the screen. But in a zombie game, having a bunch of corpses littering the screen so that other zombies will have to climb over them or whatever, like you're making piles and piles of stuff to kind of like of viscera to basically either slow down the zombies that are coming or for them to have to climb over so they can climb up the wall. It's like all those things seem to work in concert. What I just saw was you shoot these things and they disapparate, and then you're like, yes, in my magical, did I hallucinate all these things? Well, you'll know when they bite you, whether you were imagining them or not. Then you get to imagine just a dude up there who's just like shooting stuff that isn't there, and everyone's like, he does this sometimes. He just screams out, XL wave is coming! And he just starts firing wildly, and we just have to let him do it.
Why do we keep giving him the real guns?
Yeah, let's
why is that a thing?
Yeah. Let's not have that guy in our...
we give him cap guns,
You literally made something scarier than the wave of zombies coming on. Mm-hmm. A person who can see them, who is armed.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
All right, the last thing I have to talk about here is Marvel's Avengers.
Marvel's who?
Not the movie. Avengers.
So, Marvel Snap?
Not the movie. Nope, not that game. This is
Midnight Suns.
This is the live service game that came out
To booze
about a
at the
year
E3.
ago.
A year ago.
Maybe a little longer than that. No,
Okay,
yes, I think.
2020.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
closer to 2-ish.
yeah. And it did not do well. It was not well received.
Oh.
And it was James Stephanie Sterling on the did a video about it, I think this week, basically about what a crap show the whole thing was.
Yeah.
Because it's it was so sort of bad, and had all this like monetization crap in it, and it was just kind of a soulless thing.
Right.
That by extension, almost, I don't know if it succeeded, but it almost kind of scuppered the Guardians of the Galaxy game, which is apparently
Supposed to be quite good.
Okay.
but looks kind of similar, and people
Yeah.
sort of assumed it was just the same.
People were afraid it was going to be the same.
It was the same, and so by association, it almost killed that game.
Yeah, so Marvel's Avengers had a lot of things going badly for it. For one thing, I remember us watching the E3 announcement of it, and they didn't announce Hawkeye as one of the starter characters, and everybody in the crowd was just booing the shit out of them. These two
Really?
guys on stage. Yeah.
'Cause they didn't announce Hawkeye?
It was like a Square Enix E3. Yeah.
Because
people
it's
were
the Avengers,
angry
right? And it's
about
like
it.
if you had picked
And-
like the Hulk and Spider-Man and like the original Avengers, like the non-Captain America, Iron Man, whatever. Like if you named a completely different Avengers, people would have been like, okay, I'll go with that.
Yeah. But then also because the movies were at their height, people were like off-put by the fact that the characters that you were seeing didn't look like
Right, they
the
didn't.
movie
They didn't have the
characters, which-
actor's likeness in the
Yeah,
game.
which isn't like a deal breaker a lot of the time, but it was the thing that people were like honing in on a lot.
Yeah.
So that didn't help. If this is the game that I'm thinking about, this game actually also has a solo campaign with Miss Marvel that they never really marketed
Yeah.
because they were very focused on doing the live service portion of the game that, again,
I'm sure they were
so many microtransactions and stuff.
I'm sure that didn't get brought up because they were probably very afraid of the idea if they say, oh, and there's a single player campaign where you start as Miss Marvel, and everyone would have been like, what is this woke bullshit of having to play as a girl? I don't play as a girl unless she has a juicy ass. That's probably what would have happened with a lot of those people.
I don't know, so I don't want to.
Oh,
So I like speculation,
Yeah.
but I don't like speculation into hate
yeah, fair.
because I think that while that probably existed, it's not a place I want to play. So
To be honest,
fair.
the gameplay videos I've seen of it, make the Miss Marvel character seems like one of the cooler ones because she does the like they have her as the comic book version instead of the TV show
Yeah, 'cause
version
it
where,
hadn't come out yet, I
where her
think.
arms are actually getting like giant. And
yeah,
stuff.
it actually the parts I've seen of that actually look really good, and every time I see it, I'm like, I kind of wouldn't mind playing that game.
Hey, Playframe.
But I don't want to play. I don't want to play the live service portion of Marvel's Avengers because it's a weird multiplayer thing anyway.
And probably costs a lot of money.
I bet I could get it real cheap now.
Hi, Dan.
Hey Dan. Hey Carrie. I'm gonna assume you're both there.
So this was also one of these things where it was kind of and James Sterling talks about this on the episode they did because it was they put this it's sort of the poster child for this thing where they like, this is this awesome live service game and we have a we're committed to a like 5-year development plan. Look at all these cool, like our timeline for all these cool things we're going to put in.
We told you about a roadmap.
And then, to sort of be like, hey, you're not just buying this game. This is like an investment in like, you get your battle pass and you're going to be playing this for years.
Right.
And then they go like, well, that didn't work out.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All that stuff you bought it doesn't really matter anymore.
It's a rug pull.
Yeah.
Because it's like, this will be
it's a rug pull, except nobody made any money.
Right. And that's the thing. It's like, but the idea of, we are gonna make this, and we're gonna definitely keep making it, because in the backs of our minds, you're all gonna buy this, and that means we can afford to keep making it. And then you don't buy it because you're mad about stuff, or enough people get mad about stuff that you think you have to be mad about stuff as well. And so then we're like, we can't afford to keep making this, so see you later, because you didn't buy enough of it or any of it, so we have to exit the market.
We didn't sell it to the degree we needed. We, as like placed a high number, needed to sell it, because let's face it, there's that, it didn't make enough money, but it still made profit.
And it's the vicious cycle of it didn't make enough to consider to be like, well, we can keep putting resources into it, so less resources are put in, or then we start scaling back the plans, and just kind of circles and circles and circles until it's like, we're not making this thing anymore. None of you are buying the thing. Instead of the more virtuous circle of, you guys spent so much money, we can keep taking more of your money. Is that the virtuous circle here? Like, what the fuck?
It's relative, I guess.
It's game circle.
And it's And the incredibly frustrating thing, and talked about this again on Jimquisition, is that this, Squeenix, just recently, they did their like investors call thing, and they're just recently, I think they did some layoffs and stuff along with everybody else.
Probably.
But and about they downgraded their the earnings, and they were like, things are going to get being tight around here, when they have released some really great, well-performing games. But then this game, which is this sort of crappy, cynical thing that was put out to make money, like lost so much money that it made the games that they were making that went well and people liked, not like, it made it so that overall the company wasn't doing well.
Yes.
Because they were doing this thing which was supposed to be like the crappy thing that we do just because it makes a bunch of money.
Yeah, don't worry. We'll do this thing and we'll make a shit ton of money off of it, and that will offset the fact that we're not going to make as much money from all the rest of these things.
And so it's just like, So now not only do the crappy thing that they were making fails, and because of that, taking all the money and their investment time, now it looks like the other games that were actually everyone liked and were very successful, looks like they failed as well.
Yeah, so that was a dark place to leave. Hey, since PlayFrame showed up, they're great. They might be my friends, so maybe I'm biased, but they're still amazing people.
They're your friends.
They did a YouTube short recently that I really liked, and I hate YouTube shorts, not because of the concept, but because of YouTube, and I'm sure you can agree. They did the best YouTube short, as far as I'm concerned, involving Hollow Knight.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, I showed it to you. Are you gonna tell me when your game comes out?
Yeah. Oh, that was them. I didn't realize you didn't tell me what the account was. You just said, "Look at this thing."
You didn't recognize Dan's voice?
I don't listen to Dan's work that often.
Beach is a bad friend.
I'm a bad friend, Dan. I'm sorry. I couldn't pick your voice out of a thing.
I'm sorry, that was mean of me.
So it's just it was really good though.
It was a really good short.
Yeah,
I like it. I mean, I'm a little also biased because I really like Hollow Knight.
Yeah.
And there's
no kidding.
Hollow Knight.
Play to your audience. This is what we've learned.
I'm your audience.
Exactly.
God, I just
Will they announce Silk Song soon? I'd really like them too.
I mean, speaking of things that weren't announced, there was the one thing that did happen between last episode between ChillPoint and now was Microsoft did a big event where they talked about upcoming games and stuff. They surprise dropped Hi-Fi
Rush.
Rush.
I think is the name.
Yeah. It's one of those names that is just like, looks like
I remember the hi-fi part, and I always forget what the second word is.
It kind of it's one of those like, it looks like a super cool game, and from the reviews it's good. It does sound like the name got kind of picked out of a hat from just like two random words.
I mean,
we need
chances
that sound and speed. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Chances are good we'll get that on Rhythm Cafe at some point. Not next month. We've already scheduled our things, and I think that game's an Xbox exclusive right now.
Yeah.
And it's on Steam.
But
Steam never counts.
Wow.
Well, no, PC doesn't count as part of, like,
The
when people say
exclusives.
exclusives, they're
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about console exclusives usually.
It's okay. Steam can handle it. Steam can take the they're like, yeah, that's fine. You can do that. We'll just make tons and tons of money.
Steam's just full of smoke. Not
But-
really. Steam is a different vapor than smoke.
So anyway, but they talked about a bunch of stuff coming up, but notably did not talk about Starfield.
Field?
Stardew Valley Field.
Yes, Starfield.
Oh, well, now you're doing what I do.
Mm-hmm.
They notably did not talk about Starfield, which is the game that has gotten everyone's very excited about. And then there was also the thing where when they bought Bethesda, it became a Microsoft exclusive.
Yeah.
And it got delayed back in November 2022.
Mm-hmm.
It got delayed to the first half of 2023.
That sounds like now. Okay.
And during this event, they announced things coming out in the first half of 2023 in most of the months of 2023, in the sense that people are like, so you haven't announced anything to do with this game. And if it came out in the first months of 2023, it would be conflicting with a bunch of these other like high profile things that you want.
Oh, no.
So can we get an update?
But technically speaking, you haven't said it's delayed yet.
Yeah.
So people are kind of like,
they might not have an internal, like, fully figured out delayed thing yet. Like, they know it's delayed, but they don't know when to, so you don't want to give that information out.
It's rare to think that a company might have this is going to be weird to say, but a PR dark period established for a product to be like, we've announced this thing, and we've re-announced it, and we've re-announced it, and we've re-announced it because now we've had to move it, and we've had to do all these other things to it. We keep talking about it, and every time we talk about it, people end up being upset because we keep talking about it, but we don't put it out. So the idea that you might establish a dark period in PR to be like, we don't talk about this game because it's coming out in 3 months. For example, I'm not saying it is, but it's like, this game's coming out in 3 months, so we're not talking about it right now because we want to start the actual PR campaign in 30 days' time, and that's when we'll start the blitz of actually getting all the word out about this game.
There's definitely going to be like your marketing period of like when we really ramp up for hype, but I don't know that necessarily means we have a period of like we never talk about it again.
And I mean, to be fair, we did spend a fair amount of time making fun of Ubisoft for how many times they've delayed Skull and Bones. So I could,
Ubisoft is an easy target.
The other thing I've seen, random speculation that I thought was kind of interesting is that Microsoft assumed that the Blizzard Activision acquisition would have gone through by now.
Ah, yes.
And so basically that they're delaying, that they're saving Starfield for the sort of holiday 2023. They're realizing that they're not going to have anything in the last part of 2023 because a bunch of the projects that they're working on haven't actually come about. Right. So they're saving Starfield for that.
That means you don't really talk about it until closer to E3.
Yeah, that's actually a good point.
When like holiday games, you don't talk about those until like around May, June, July.
Yeah.
Usually. And at that point you do save it for like a bigger event if it's a really big game like that.
Also, I think it's really interesting that that you say, not because you say this, but because the idea of like Microsoft almost certainly had an expectation that the Activision Blizzard merger would have happened at this point, because they've been gleefully buying up companies for like the last little while Embracer Group is doing the same thing, and while other companies are doing the same kind of consolidation maneuvers and all that kind of stuff. That idea of like, well, we can just go out and do this, and I'm like, I wonder at what, this is just in the abstract, I wonder at what point that you get to be a certain size of corporation where it's like being a billionaire and dropping $1,000 on something and feeling like you didn't even feel that, right? That just kind of like, I just spent $1,000 on dinner that night because that's what I felt like doing. You don't even say that to people anymore, that you're like, I went out and had $1,000 dinner, because you're just kind of like, this is just de rigueur. This is a thing that I do all the time now. I don't even feel the money leave my bank account. I have a completely different perspective on how my day-to-day is in terms of money. And so if Microsoft's like, we've been buying I'm a company, I'm a person, right? I've been buying so many companies and studios and stuff, integrate them into my portfolio, that here's Activision Blizzard, I want to buy them as well. And that idea of like, maybe you just get to a point where you're like, and I'll just be able to do that. No one will say a boo about it, and we'll be done here in a year. Like, if that kind of weird confidence.
Wouldn't like investors and shareholders be the ones that would be like, hey, now, You can't just buy studios for the sake of buying studios. You have to like justify it.
Right, but to them it's like, we just kind of always keep doing it, and no one has ever said stop. Even our investors and shareholders don't seem to say stop, and the other companies don't ever seem to say stop. So we just kind of keep hoovering them up, and that's fine. And
I mean,
really?
I don't think they were expecting as much pushback on the monopoly thing as they did. But yeah.
Okay, I have a question. You said Starfield is the game that clearly is like notably, why didn't you talk about it at Xbox? Silksong is the game that I see everybody yell about every time there's a Nintendo conference direct indie thing, because they showed it off at an indie thing once. What's the Sony one? What's the game everyone's yelling every time there's a Sony presentation?
Oh,
that hasn't come out yet.
I don't know.
Look, Silksong is going to come out on February 14th.
Bloodborne.
Because Team Cherry loves me.
Bloodborne 2.
It's
Beyond
not.
Good. Beyond Good and Evil 2.
Yeah.
Beyond Good and Evil 2 is sort of it.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, you'd yell that more at the Ubisoft presentation, I'm sure, than anything else.
I don't think people are even.
Do that at
I don't
the
think
Sony
people
one.
are even yelling about Beyond Good and Evil 2 anymore. People are just like,
it's a very Duke Nukem Forever situation of like,
it's very
sure,
sad.
This comes out when it comes out.
After playing the first Beyond Good and Evil, after seeing what they wanted the second one to be, I have no interest.
Yeah, maybe I'm I'm biased because I like to play most of my games on PC and stuff. But I feel like and a couple people have mentioned on in chat that I feel like the thing that people get most excited about at PlayStation events is when they announce that PlayStation exclusives are going to be available on PC and other platforms.
Which has to be weirdly disheartening in a way, when you're kind of like, hey, and this is also available on PC, and everyone loses their mind. You're like, you just want us to put all of our games on the thing you want to play and stop buying our console, right? And it's like, yeah, we do.
Well,
whereas
I guess when the PlayStation 5 is so hard to get.
Yeah. Whereas on the other hand, you go to a Nintendo conference, people are like, we're putting this thing out, and it's like, yay, because we've been so used to being locked into this console forever. It's like, we don't ever expect that Mario Odyssey is ever going to show up on PC. Why would it?
Mario's coming to PlayStation. How old is that rumor? That rumor is like years upon years.
Sure.
It's not.
I would love if.
Well, don't worry, guys. This is your year that Nintendo somehow falls apart.
No, not until Tears of the Kingdom is out.
Don't worry, it'll be PC exclusive when it comes out.
I hate you.
I hate you too.
My other favorite bit of people talking about Starfield is people being like, just release Starfield.
Don't even finish it.
No, they're like, just release Starfield as quickly as possible. I don't give a crap, because while they're working on Starfield, they can't be making Elder Scrolls 6.
Right, yes. That's always, yeah.
People who don't want Starfield, but they want Elder Scrolls 6.
They wanted to get done because they have a different game they want, yeah.
They're like, every time you delay Starfield, you are also implicitly delaying Elder Scrolls 6.
Yeah.
Wow.
I can't read those things on like a daily basis. It would drive me up the wall, but I do like reading it. It's like once a week, treat for me. Watch people talk about things that you're like, yeah, sure, go for it.
Anyway. So, those are the things we want to talk about this week. ChillPoint is going to be back next week as usual.
It wasn't
Thursday.
gone this last week.
That's true. It will continue.
Everything happened normally for everybody else except for us.
ChillPoint will continue to be normal next week.
ChillPoint, though, should be on Friday next
and
week,
ChillPoint will continue to be normal as well. So
as normal as we can get.
Yeah. I mean, it'll continue to be like it is.
I'm sure
normally.
Beej will still have some sort of rant.
Yep.
I will make up something else while I ignore our actual story, and Paul will try very hard to get through what he has written down.
Yes. All of those things are true. So, that's all we have talked about today. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
Check out patreon.com/loadingreadyrun.
And the store at store.loadingreadyrun.com.
Yeah, there's lots of cool stuff that you can purchase there. Everything helps us on the channel here and helps all the things that you enjoy. Talk to y'all later. Bye.